3 days after I moved to the capital, I married a woman whose kitchen faucet leaked and whose refrigerator contained nothing but mineral water and half a lemon. I assumed Evelyn Hart was an overworked consultant with a difficult family. Then she brought me to a reception at the tallest hotel in the city. The guards bowed. Cabinet ministers greeted her by name. A wall-sized screen welcomed the future chairwoman of Hartwell Group, an empire worth more than $12 billion. And across the ballroom, my silver-haired ex dropped her glass when she saw Evelyn holding my arm. "Adrian?" Vanessa whispered. "Why are you standing beside her?" Evelyn glanced at the wedding band on my hand and answered before I could. "Because he is my husband." 48 hours earlier, I had not known Evelyn was a billionaire heiress. 1 week earlier, I had still been planning to marry someone else. Vanessa Snow and I met when we were 19. Back then, she sold altered vintage dresses from a room above her aunt's bakery, and I studied product design at a college where the radiators worked only when the weather was warm. At 28, I still had the same short black hair that refused to stay neat and the same habit of carrying a pencil behind one ear. We were broke, ambitious, and convinced love could turn inconvenience into adventure. Vanessa could look at a piece of fabric and imagine the woman who would wear it. I could look at a chaotic workshop and imagine a system that would keep it alive. She designed. I built the website, negotiated with suppliers, repaired the machines, photographed the first collection, and delivered orders on a bicycle with one functioning brake. The company became Snowe Atelier. The room above the bakery became a studio. The studio became a factory. The factory became 3 flagship stores and an international brand. Whenever a magazine called Vanessa a self-made genius, I felt proud rather than invisible. She was brilliant. I never needed the world to put my face beside hers. I only needed her to remember that we had built the first table together. For 9 years, I believed she did. On our anniversary, Snowe Atelier opened a waterfront showroom in Bellmere. The glass building glowed over the harbor, and almost every influential person in the city had received an invitation. Vanessa thought the evening was only about the new collection. I had planned something else. Not a helicopter, not fireworks. Vanessa hated loud displays, and after 9 years, I knew which kinds of attention made her smile and which made her want to disappear. I restored the cutting table from the room above the bakery. Every scratch was still there. On it, I placed the first dress she had ever sold, the first invoice I had printed, and a small velvet box containing a ring made from platinum and a pale blue diamond. Behind the table stood 9 dress forms, one for every year we had spent together. Each wore a single unfinished piece from a collection Vanessa once said she would design for our wedding. At 10 o'clock, the showroom lights dimmed. Vanessa walked onto the terrace in a crimson suit, her long silver-white hair catching the harbor lights. She was 28, famous, beautiful, and so composed that investors often changed their offers just to stop her from looking at them in silence. That night, however, her attention remained on her phone. "Vanessa," I said. The guests formed a quiet circle. Her closest friends were already recording. I did not kneel immediately. I took her hand and led her to the old cutting table. For 1 second, her expression softened. "You kept this?" "I kept everything that mattered." Then, I opened the ring box. "We spent 9 years building a future. I don't want to keep calling it someday. Vanessa Snow, will you marry me?" The silence that followed was not the breathless kind I had imagined. Vanessa looked at the ring. Then she looked at the people watching us. Her phone vibrated again. She pulled her hand from mine. "You chose tonight? It is our anniversary. It is also the most important launch in my company's history. My company's." 2 words should not have hurt after 9 years, but they did. "The presentation is over," I said. "The contracts are signed. I checked with your team 3 times. That does not mean I want my private life turned into part of the entertainment." Several phones lowered. A few guests looked away. I closed the ring box slowly. "Then answer me privately." Her phone vibrated a 3rd time. A male voice played through the preview before she silenced it. "Vanessa, the suite is boring without you." I recognized the voice. Leon Drake was the 22-year-old actor Snowe Atelier had hired as its new brand ambassador. He had appeared beside Vanessa in interviews, on magazine covers, and recently in photographs taken far outside working hours. Whenever I asked about him, she called me insecure. Vanessa locked her screen. I have to meet the campaign team. At 10 at night? Luxury retail does not operate around your feelings, Adrian. Her friends exchanged glances. One of them, Camille, covered her discomfort with a sip of champagne. I felt the room waiting for me to save Vanessa from the consequences of her own words. That had always been my role. When she missed a birthday, I explained that she was working. When she forgot dinner, I reheated it. When she insulted me after a bad meeting, I waited until morning and apologized for upsetting her. This time, I did not move aside. Are you going to him? Vanessa's eyes sharpened. Do not interrogate me in front of my guests. They became our audience when you made me ask the question 3 times. For a moment, anger cracked her perfect expression. Fine, I am not ready to marry you. Is that clear enough? It was clear. The strange part was that the humiliation hurt less than the relief. I had spent months wondering whether I was imagining the distance between us. Now the distance had finally spoken. Vanessa took 1 step past me. We will discuss this at home when you are calmer. No, I said. We will discuss it now. Are you involved with Leon? I am leaving. That is still an answer. She paused, but only long enough to make sure I heard her next words. You have become exhausting. Then she walked out. The guests slowly dispersed. The old cutting table remained beneath the spotlights like evidence from a crime nobody wanted to report. Marcus Reed, my closest friend from college, helped me carry it into storage. You don't have to follow her, he said. I know. Do you? I looked at the closed ring box in my palm. I need to hear the truth once, without giving her the words. Marcus offered to come with me. I refused. The campaign team had reserved rooms at the Meridian Club, a private hotel 5 minutes from the showroom. I knew because I had approved the invoice that morning. Vanessa's assistant had left my name on the access list. I reached the top-floor lounge at 11:12. Music pulsed behind a smoked glass door. I was about to enter when I heard Camille laugh. You could at least have said no without destroying him, Vanessa answered. Adrian will recover. He looked finished. He always looks like that when he wants me to feel guilty. Give him 4 days. 5 if Marcus fills his head with nonsense. Then he will apologize for embarrassing me. Another friend asked, and the proposal? Maybe next year. Stability is useful, but it becomes suffocating when it expects gratitude. Leon chuckled. So I'm the exciting part? Through the narrow opening between the doors, I saw Vanessa sitting beside him. His arm rested along the back of her chair. Her fingers were looped through his tie. You are temporary, she told him. That sounds cruel. It is honest. Adrian is home. You are a vacation. Leon leaned closer. Does home know about the vacation? Vanessa kissed him instead of answering. Something inside me became quiet. I did not storm into the room. I did not demand an explanation from a woman who had just given one. I took out my phone, photographed the open door and the 2 people behind it, then sent the image to the attorney who had prepared my shareholder agreement. After that, I went home. Vanessa arrived at 2 in the morning, smelling of champagne and Leon's cedar cologne. She found me at the dining table with 2 folders and the apartment keys between us. You still awake? She said. Sit down. She smiled without humor. So serious. Are you planning to propose again? No. I pushed the first folder toward her. That contains an inventory of my personal property and the intellectual work I contributed before Snowe Atelier Incorporated. The second folder is, notice that I am exercising the exit clause on 12% of my shares. My attorney will handle the rest. Vanessa did not touch either folder. What performance is this? We are finished. She stared at me for several seconds and then laughed. Because I delayed a proposal? Because you kissed Leon. Because you called me useful when you thought I couldn't hear. Because somewhere in the last few years, you began treating my loyalty like a service you had purchased. Her face changed at Leon's name. You followed me? I stopped following you tonight. That is the point. Nothing happened that matters. It mattered to me. Adrian, do not throw away 9 years over one stupid evening. You threw them away in installments. I only noticed the total. That silenced her. I had imagined this confrontation many times during the drive home. In every version, I shouted. In reality, I was too tired. Vanessa walked around the table and reached for my face. I stepped back. It was the first time I had refused her touch. She looked more shocked by that than by the folders. "You need sleep," she said. "We both do. In the morning, you will understand how ridiculous this is. My train leaves at 8. For where? The capital. Marcus had offered me his spare room months earlier. A design cooperative there had also invited me to interview, an opportunity I postponed 3 times because Vanessa always had another launch. Her expression hardened. "You cannot disappear whenever I upset you. Watch me leave without disappearing." I placed my new address and my attorney's number on top of the folders. "Every financial matter goes through counsel. If you need something personal, write it in an email. I will read it when I am ready. And when you come back? I am not coming back to this apartment." She folded her arms. 1 week. That is how long this rebellion lasts. Then the 8th day should be educational. I lifted my suitcase and left. At 6 the next morning, Camille sent me a video from the Meridian Lounge. Vanessa's friends had opened another bottle after I left. Leon raised his glass toward the camera. "How long before the faithful boyfriend returns?" Someone guessed 3 days. Someone else guessed 5. Vanessa sat in the center of the sofa, silver hair draped over one shoulder, wearing the expression she used when investors offered less than she wanted. "By Sunday," she said. "He has never built a life that doesn't include me." I watched the clip once. Then I forwarded it to my attorney as evidence that no reconciliation was being negotiated, blocked the group chat, and boarded the train. The capital appeared beyond the window 5 hours later. All steel towers, old brick neighborhoods, and elevated trains threading between them. I arrived with 1 suitcase, a portfolio, and the blue diamond ring I had been unable to return before leaving. For the first time in 9 years, nobody knew where I was supposed to be. The freedom felt almost like fear. Marcus lived above a stationery shop in the East Archive district, where narrow streets curved between libraries and century-old apartment buildings. His spare room contained a folding bed, 2 dying plants, and enough unopened delivery boxes to build a second wall. Marcus did not ask whether I was all right. He knew I would lie. Instead, he handed me a spare key and told me our university classmates were meeting that evening at a rooftop restaurant nearby. I tried to refuse, but an empty room gave memories too much space. 3 hours later, I followed Marcus to a rooftop filled with string lights, mismatched chairs, and classmates I had not seen since graduation. The reunion was loud enough to prevent serious conversation. That was exactly what I needed. My former classmates argued about professors, disastrous projects, and which of us had aged the worst. Nobody mentioned Vanessa until Marcus threatened to throw a bread roll at them. I had almost relaxed when the rooftop door opened. A woman in a navy suit stepped outside, carrying a stack of rolled plans beneath one arm. Long black hair fell straight down her back. Her face was calm and fine-boned, but a loose strand near her cheek and a faint ink mark on her thumb made her look less untouchable than she intended. She scanned the tables and stopped when she saw me. Adrian Cole. I knew the voice before I remembered the face. Evelyn? Evelyn Hart had been 1 year ahead of us at university. She submitted flawless projects, vanished before parties, worked weekends at Archive House bookstore, and never mentioned her family. We spent 1 winter sharing a table in the engineering library, communicating through notes while she designed a flood-resistant neighborhood and I built packaging prototypes. Then, halfway through the semester, Evelyn stopped coming. I heard she had transferred abroad. I never learned why. Now she walked directly toward me and placed the rolled plans in Marcus's hands without asking permission. "Hold these." Marcus obeyed, with the stunned expression of a man selected by royalty to carry groceries. Evelyn looked at my suitcase beside the table. "You came straight from the station?" "More or less." "And did not tell me you were moving here?" I glanced at Marcus. He raised both hands. "I may have posted a photograph in the alumni chat." "We haven't spoken in 7 years," I told Evelyn. "That explains the silence. It does not excuse it." Her tone was severe, but her dark eyes were smiling. She sat in the empty chair beside me. Several classmates suddenly became very interested in listening. "Are you still designing public spaces?" I asked. "I manage redevelopment projects for my family company." "That sounds important." "It mostly means people send me documents they have not read and ask for decisions they will later claim were theirs." I laughed before I could stop myself. Evelyn's gaze softened. "There, you still know how." "How what?" "Laugh. Marcus made your arrival sound like a state funeral." Marcus carefully moved out of striking distance. Dinner continued, but Evelyn spoke mostly to me. She remembered details I had forgotten. The vending machine that swallowed my last coin, the model bridge I rebuilt overnight, the green scarf Vanessa used to wear when she visited campus. That last memory tightened something in my chest. Evelyn noticed. "I heard about the proposal," she said quietly. "The capital has efficient gossip. Marcus has no concept of confidential information." Also true. She did not offer pity. Instead, she poured water into my empty glass. "For what it is worth, leaving was the correct decision. You don't know what happened. I know you." You stay long after staying becomes painful. If you finally left, something was already beyond repair. The accuracy unsettled me. Before I could answer, Evelyn's phone lit up. She read the message, and the warmth vanished from her expression. "Problem?" I asked. "A family vote." "At midnight?" "My family thinks sleep is a weakness found in people without lawyers." She stood and reclaimed her plans from Marcus. "I have to go. Adrian, may I borrow you tomorrow morning?" "For what?" "Breakfast, advice, possibly a minor act of rebellion." "In that order?" "Depending on the coffee." She wrote an address on the back of a receipt and slid it toward me. 9 o'clock, Archive House. After she left, Marcus said she had looked at me like she had been waiting for a delayed train. I dismissed him, but folded the receipt carefully before placing it in my wallet. Archive House occupied the ground floor of a narrow brick building squeezed between two glass towers. The brass sign had faded, and handwritten recommendation cards covered the shelves inside. Evelyn waited at a table in the back with coffee, toast, and a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. She had traded her suit for a cream sweater and black trousers. Without the formal armor, she looked younger and more tired. "You came," she said. "You threatened me with breakfast. I remembered you'd take coffee without sugar." 7 years later? I have an excellent memory. The bookstore owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Lin, brought eggs and squeezed Evelyn's shoulder affectionately. "You finally brought the library boy." Evelyn nearly dropped her cup. Mrs. Lin walked away before I could ask what that meant. "Old people enjoy inventing stories," Evelyn said. She seemed very specific. "Would you like breakfast or an investigation?" I chose breakfast. For 10 minutes, we spoke about the capital. Evelyn marked neighborhoods on a paper map and warned me which landlords considered hot water an optional upgrade. Then she placed the thick folder between us. "My grandmother founded our family company," she said. "When she died, she divided control between a voting trust and the board. Her trust transfers to me on my 30th birthday, provided I have established a household independent of the relatives currently serving on the board." Established a household? A legal spouse or a legally adopted child. My grandmother believed anyone responsible for another person would make less reckless decisions. She had unusual ideas about governance. That clause sounds easy to challenge. It is, in 2 years. The board vote is Friday. She opened the folder. The first page contained a proposed merger between Hart Development and Halden Capital. The second contained a marriage announcement pairing Evelyn with Victor Halden. I assume Victor is the rebellion. Victor is a corporate fire wearing cufflinks. My uncle wants me to marry him, combine the companies, and approve a redevelopment plan that would remove 12,000 residents from the South River District. And if you refuse? The board declares the trust condition unmet and appoints my uncle temporary chair. He signs the merger before a court can review the clause. I turned another page. Renderings showed polished towers where family stores and apartment blocks currently stood. What does this have to do with me? Evelyn folded her hands. "I need a husband by Thursday." I waited for her to smile. She did not. "You asked me to breakfast so you could propose marriage?" "Technically, I asked you to breakfast so you would be less likely to choke when I proposed a temporary legal partnership." That strategy failed. I noticed. She slid a thinner contract from the folder. 100 days, separate finances, separate bedrooms, no expectation of physical intimacy. You receive independent legal counsel, accommodation, and a consulting fee equal to the work you miss while attending necessary events. Either of us may end the arrangement immediately if safety or consent becomes an issue. After the board confirms the trust, we file an uncontested dissolution. I stared at her. "Why me?" "Because I trust you." You haven't seen me in 7 years. Trust and familiarity are not identical. I know what you do when nobody rewards you for doing the right thing. I closed the contract. No. Pain flickered across her face, but she nodded. All right. That's it? Did you expect me to threaten you? I expected a second argument. A marriage that begins after one person says no is not a partnership. That answer made refusing her harder, not easier. There must be 100 people you know better. Most of them depend on my family. Others want access to it. You are the only person I can ask who has already walked away from power when it cost him something. You heard about Vanessa yesterday. I heard you left yesterday. I knew about your work at Snowe Atelier for years. How? Evelyn looked down at her coffee. The design world is small. It sounded incomplete, but not dishonest enough to challenge. I pushed the contract back. I just ended a 9-year relationship. If I marry anyone this week, even on paper, I will be turning another person into pain medicine. That would be unfair to both of us. I understand. I'm sorry. Do not apologize for protecting a boundary. She packed the documents without another attempt to persuade me. Before leaving, she paid for breakfast and wrote the name of an attorney on the map. She is independent of my family, Evelyn said. Whether or not you help me, let her review your Snowe Atelier agreement. Your ex's counsel filed an emergency motion against your shares this morning. My phone had been on silent. 6 missed calls waited on the screen, 4 from my attorney and 2 from Vanessa. The first message from Vanessa read, "Come home before this becomes ugly." The second read, "If you try to take company assets, I will make sure nobody in the capital hires you." Evelyn did not ask to see them. She simply handed me the attorney's card. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "Offering help after I refused yours." Those matters are unrelated. To her, perhaps they were. To me, they were the first proof that kindness did not always arrive with an invoice. The attorney, Priya Shah, met me that afternoon. She reviewed my documents and confirmed what I suspected. Vanessa was trying to freeze my shares by accusing me of taking proprietary files. The allegation was absurd, but absurd allegations still required expensive answers. Evelyn had prepaid for the review. I insisted on paying my share, then gave Priya source files, supplier emails, and board minutes proving I had created the systems Vanessa now claimed I stole. By evening, Priya believed we could defeat the motion. Then the design cooperative canceled my interview. The director admitted Snowe Atelier had threatened to withdraw its sponsorship if they hired me. An hour later, Marcus received notice that his firm was reviewing an old project because he had given me temporary accommodation. Vanessa was not waiting for me to return. She was removing every place I might stand until returning looked like the only option. I called her. She answered on the first ring. "Are you ready to stop?" she asked. "Withdraw the motion and leave Marcus out of this. Come home. We will discuss everything privately." "There is nothing to discuss." "Then enjoy discovering how many doors I opened for you." "I built some of those doors." "Prove it without using my name." She ended the call. I called Evelyn. "Does your offer still exist?" She was silent for a moment. "Only if you are not asking because Vanessa frightened you." "She did frighten me. That is not why I'm asking." "Then why?" I looked at the South River redevelopment plans Evelyn had allowed me to photograph. "Because your board is using a legal technicality to destroy a neighborhood, while my ex is trying to destroy my independence. I need a clean break. You need a temporary husband. And I would rather begin my new life protecting homes than begging Vanessa for permission to work." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "Meet me at Priya's office tomorrow morning. Read every page. Bring your own conditions. If you change your mind at the registry, we walk away. Agreed. Adrian?" "Yes?" "Do not say agreed until you have read the contract." I laughed. 9 tomorrow. We spent 6 hours negotiating. I added a clause requiring full disclosure of any family matter that could affect my safety or reputation. Evelyn added a clause preventing me from surrendering my Snowe shares below independent valuation. I required separate bedrooms. She required breakfast together at least 4 days a week unless one of us was traveling. "That is not a legal necessity," I said. "Neither is your rule against surprise press conferences. Surprise press conferences can ruin lives. So can people who forget to eat." Priya hid a smile behind the contract. The document described Hart Development as a privately held real estate company. I asked Evelyn how large it was. Large enough to have an unpleasant board, she said. That is not a number. The trust controls several connected companies. I do not personally control them, yet. My own apartment is paid for, and I have enough independent income that this arrangement will not create debt for you. It was evasive, but I assumed wealthy meant a few hundred million in family property. In Bellmere, that already qualified as another universe. I should have asked how many connected companies. At 4:30, Priya set down her pen. You both understand that this will be a real legal marriage. The private contract governs your expectations, but it does not make the registration imaginary. I understand, Evelyn said. Priya looked at me. I thought about the ring I had offered Vanessa, the life I had spent maintaining, and the empty room where I would sleep if I walked away. Then I looked at Evelyn. She was not smiling. She was giving me space to refuse. I understand, I said. The registry office was almost empty by the time we arrived. Rain blurred the Capitol outside the tall windows. We signed our names beneath fluorescent lights, while a clerk complained that my middle initial looked like a number. There were no flowers, no cameras, and no restored cutting table. When the clerk asked whether we entered the marriage freely, Evelyn answered yes and waited. Yes, I said. The stamp came down. Just like that, Evelyn Hart became my wife. Outside, we stood beneath the stone archway listening to the rain. Do temporary husbands usually shake hands? I asked. I believe that is for business mergers. This feels like one. An alarming comparison, considering what we are trying to prevent. She held out her hand anyway. I took it. Her fingers were cold. 100 days, she said. No secrets that affect the other person. No sacrificing yourself to prove a point. Breakfast 4 times a week. That is the most important clause. A black sedan stopped at the curb. I looked from the uniformed driver to Evelyn. Family company? Something like that. The driver opened the door and bowed. Welcome home, Miss Hart. Mr. Cole. I should have noticed that he did not call me Mr. Hart. Evelyn had already instructed everyone around her to let me keep my own name. The sedan took us to a narrow townhouse on a quiet street behind the National Museum. It was elegant, but not extravagant. Ivy climbed the brick facade. The entry tiles were chipped near the door. A bicycle leaned beneath the stairs. Inside, Evelyn showed me a guest room overlooking a small courtyard. Beside the desk stood drafting paper and a second-hand lamp identical to the one I used in college. You remembered the lamp? You complained about modern lamps for an entire winter. They cast shadows in the wrong direction. Yes, I remember the lecture. The kitchen faucet dripped every 7 seconds. I tightened the valve while Evelyn searched a refrigerator containing mineral water, mustard, and half a lemon that looked older than our marriage. Do you cook? She asked. Sometimes. Excellent. I can order soup. We ordered noodles. Our first dinner as husband and wife took place on the kitchen floor because the table was covered with South River maps. Evelyn explained that her grandmother had protected the district through rent caps and community ownership. Victor's redevelopment proposal would dissolve those protections. My uncle calls it modernization, she said. Modernization for whom? People who view a neighborhood only from the backseat of a car. I studied the plans. The proposal was profitable because it treated current residents as an obstacle. But the existing district sat beside 2 transit lines, a university, and the river. With renovation instead of demolition, it could generate income without removing the people who gave it value. Your board expects you to arrive with a husband, I said. What if you arrive with an alternative plan too? Evelyn leaned closer. You have known about this project for 12 hours. And the people who designed it never walked the streets. How can you tell? Every entrance faces the avenue. Nobody included the alleys, courtyards, or market lanes. They designed land, not a place. She looked at me with such focused admiration that I forgot what I intended to say next. What? I asked. Nothing. Continue. We worked until 2 in the morning. At breakfast, I discovered the 4-day rule had not been a joke. Evelyn appeared at 7 in a blue blouse, 2 cups of coffee in hand, and a printed schedule. Today we visit South River, she said. Tomorrow evening is the family reception. Friday is the vote. Saturday, if we survive, we sleep. Together? She nearly spilled her coffee. I smiled into my cup. Separate rooms, I reminded her. I read the contract. You are enjoying this too much. The terrifying Evelyn Hart blushing over one word? I may frame the memory. Finish your breakfast, temporary husband. South River did not resemble the board renderings. Children drew on the pavement outside a community center. Mechanics worked beneath strings of laundry. A spice market filled an old station hall, and residents had converted an abandoned warehouse into studios and classrooms. Evelyn knew people by name. Mrs. Alvarez from the bakery hugged her. A group of teenagers dragged her toward a broken basketball court. Shopkeepers handed her petitions, invoices, and containers of food. You come here often? I said. My grandmother brought me every Saturday. She said if I ever signed a plan without knowing the smell of the street after rain, I should be removed from the company. I would have liked her. She would have interrogated you for 3 hours and then fed you until you surrendered. We spent the day measuring buildings and listening. The residents did not oppose investment. They wanted repaired plumbing, safer walkways, better transit access, and protection from rents rising beyond their income. At the community workshop, I sketched a phased plan that kept every residential block open while construction moved through the district. Local businesses would receive equity in the renovated market rather than temporary compensation. Vacant riverfront land could support a hotel and research campus whose revenue subsidized housing repairs. It earns less in the first 2 years, I told Evelyn. More in 10. My uncle does not believe in years that occur after his bonus. Then we make the first 2 years attractive enough that greed accidentally funds patience. Evelyn smiled. I knew you were the correct husband. The room went silent. 20 residents looked between us. Evelyn had not announced the marriage yet. Mrs. Alvarez placed both hands over her mouth and then screamed loudly enough to frighten birds from the roof. We spent the next 20 minutes accepting congratulations for a relationship 4 days old. An elderly tailor insisted on measuring me for a proper suit. 3 children asked whether Evelyn had proposed. When I said yes, they applauded her. On the walk home, Evelyn kept her hands in her coat pockets. I am sorry, she said. I did not intend to announce it that way. They seemed happy. They believe I finally chose a life outside the boardroom. Didn't you? She looked at me. Temporarily. The word landed differently than it had at breakfast. That evening, a courier delivered formal clothes for the family reception. My suit fit perfectly. You had this made in 1 day? I asked. Mrs. Alvarez sent your measurements to the Hartwell tailor. Hartwell? Our parent company. How many parent companies does one development firm need? Wear the suit, Adrian. I caught the smallest sign of guilt in her expression. Evelyn, is there anything about your family that affects me tomorrow? She hesitated. Our contract required full disclosure. The reception will be larger than I suggested, she said. There will be press, government officials, and international partners. My family is influential in the capital. How influential? Enough that some people may pretend our marriage is about money. People in Bellmere already call me Vanessa's kept boyfriend. I can survive strangers being unoriginal. That is not the part that worries me. What does? Her phone rang. She looked at the name and closed her eyes. My uncle. Answer it, then finish telling me. She stepped into the study. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. When Evelyn returned, I had fallen asleep over the South River sketches. She covered me with a blanket and turned off the lamp. I woke before she explained. The next evening, the sedan did not take us to an office or a private restaurant. It stopped beneath the illuminated entrance of the Imperial Crown, the tallest hotel in the capital. Television crews lined the carpet. This is a family reception? I asked. Evelyn's hand tightened around her clutch. Adrian, I should have told you last night. The driver opened our door. Camera flashes flooded the car. Told me what? A reporter shouted, Miss Hartwell, is it true you registered a marriage yesterday? Another called. Will your husband support your appointment as chairwoman? Hartwell, not Hart. On the building across the plaza, a financial screen displayed the day's market news. Hartwell Group's succession vote expected Friday. Below the headline appeared Evelyn's portrait and evaluation, $12.4 billion. I turned toward her. Your family owns Hartwell Group? My grandmother created it. Hotels, transit, energy, and half the commercial property in this city, Hartwell Group? Not half. The newspapers exaggerate. That is your correction? The reporter surged closer. Evelyn told the driver to close the door. The noise softened. "I was afraid you would refuse if you knew the scale," she said. "Then you understood the scale mattered to my decision. I disclosed the companies in the legal schedules. In 600 pages of trust documents that Priya summarized as family assets. You are right." Her immediate admission did not erase the deception, but it prevented anger from becoming an argument about reality. "I did not lie about the board, the trust, or South River," she continued. "But I allowed you to believe my family was merely wealthy. That was dishonest." "Why?" "Because everyone changes when they learn the number. Some become obedient. Some become suspicious. Most stop looking at me and start looking at what stands behind me." "So you tested me?" "No. I was a coward. There is no kinder name for it." Outside, camera flashes struck the windows like lightning. "What happens if I leave?" I asked. Evelyn swallowed. "I walk inside alone and tell them the marriage will be dissolved. The board probably appoints my uncle. You owe me nothing. And South River? I fight through the courts. It may be too late for the first buildings." "That is not what I asked. What happens to me?" "The car takes you anywhere you want." "Priya continues defending your shares at my expense because I involved you without full honesty. No employee or reporter contacts you again if I can prevent it." She removed her wedding ring. "You may decide now." I looked at the ring in her palm. The old version of me would have stayed to protect her feelings and called the decision love. The frightened version would have left to prove nobody could use me again. Neither choice belonged to the person I wanted to become. "I am angry," I said. "You should be. If I stay tonight, it does not mean I forgive the secret." "I understand." "Tomorrow, Priya gives me an unabridged explanation of every asset, enemy, and obligation attached to your name. We rewrite the contract." "Yes. And you never decide what truth I can handle again. Never." I took the ring from her palm and slid it back onto her finger. "Then we finish what we agreed to do." Relief crossed her face, followed by something more vulnerable. "May I hold your arm?" she asked. "For the cameras?" "For me." I offered it. We stepped out together. Inside, the ballroom rose 6 stories beneath a ceiling of suspended lights. A string orchestra played above a staircase. Executives I recognized from magazine covers turned to watch us enter. The Hartwell name appeared everywhere. I had expected Evelyn's family to be influential. I had not expected the Capitol to look like one of their meeting rooms. An older man approached with silver at his temples and displeasure carved into every line of his face. "Evelyn," he said, "who is this?" "Uncle Conrad, meet Adrian Cole, my husband. Adrian, Conrad Hartwell, interim chair." Conrad's eyes moved over me like a customs inspection. "Occupation?" "Designer." "Family?" "Not present." "Assets?" Enough to recognize that question as rude. Evelyn hid a smile. Conrad did not. "A marriage registered 2 days before a succession vote will be challenged." "Challenge it," Evelyn said. "The statute measures legality, not your satisfaction." "And when the press discovers he ran from another woman's company last week?" I turned toward Conrad. "I resigned from a personal relationship. My equity remains under legal review. If you plan to discuss it publicly, ask your counsel to spell my name correctly." "You think confidence makes you suitable for this family?" "No. Evelyn does. Her opinion is the only one relevant to our marriage." Conrad's jaw tightened. A blond man in a white dinner jacket joined us. He was handsome in the careful way of someone who never entered a room before confirming the light. "So this is the emergency husband," he said. Evelyn's fingers pressed lightly against my arm. "Victor Halden," she said. "The merger with cufflinks." Victor laughed. "Evelyn has always confused stubbornness with principle. Do you know what she promised you, Adrian? Money, a title, a generous divorce? Breakfast 4 times a week." Victor stared at me. "I negotiated firmly," I added. Evelyn turned her laugh into a cough. Victor's smile thinned. "Enjoy the joke while it lasts. On Friday, the board will establish that this arrangement is fraudulent. Evelyn will lose the trust, and you will return to whatever town produced that suit." "South River produced the suit," I said. "You would recognize the district if your redevelopment team had visited it." For the first time, Victor looked uncertain. Before he could respond, The master of ceremonies announced the arrival of Snowe Atelier's chief executive and its celebrity ambassador. The ballroom doors opened. Vanessa entered in a red suit nearly identical to the one she had worn when she rejected my proposal. Her silver-white hair gleamed beneath the chandeliers. Leon followed half a step behind her, smiling for photographers. Snowe Atelier had spent months pursuing a retail contract with Hartwell Hotels. Vanessa had mentioned the capital reception many times. I had been too occupied planning our proposal to remember the date. She saw me before she reached the stairs. Her smile disappeared. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the marble. Every nearby conversation stopped. Adrian? I felt Evelyn begin to release my arm, perhaps offering me space. I placed my hand over hers and kept it there. Vanessa looked at our joined hands, then at the rings. Why are you standing beside her? Evelyn waited for me to answer. That mattered. Vanessa, I said. This is Evelyn Hartwell, my wife. Evelyn, this is Vanessa Snowe, my former business partner. Former business partner. The phrase struck harder than ex-girlfriend could have. Vanessa's face lost all color. Your wife? Yes. You left 6 days ago. 7 tomorrow. Your prediction was close. She understood the reference to the video. Shame flashed across her eyes, then vanished beneath anger. Can we speak privately? Anything concerning Snowe Atelier goes through our attorneys. This is not about the company. Then there is even less to discuss. Leon stepped forward. Vanessa, people are watching. She rounded on him. Then stop speaking. The contempt in her voice made him retreat. Vanessa moved closer to me. You married a stranger to punish me? Evelyn's expression cooled, but she still did not interrupt. I did not marry Evelyn because of you, I said. I left because of you. Those are different decisions. You cannot love her. Our marriage is none of your concern. After 9 years, I am supposed to believe I mean nothing in a week? You mattered enough that leaving hurt. You do not matter enough to make me return. The words were not cruel. They were true, and truth left less room to argue. Vanessa looked at Evelyn. Do you know he proposed to me last week? Yes, Evelyn said. Do you know he spent his entire adult life building my company? Yes. Then you know you are a rebound. Evelyn finally released my arm. She stepped forward, not to shield me, but to stand level with Vanessa. I know Adrian entered this marriage with a wounded heart. I also know he is not property misplaced during your affair. If you want to question his decisions, speak to him. If you want to insult mine, schedule an appointment. Vanessa's eyes burned. You think your surname means you won? No. Adrian is not a prize either of us can win. That sentence changed the room. Vanessa had expected a territorial rival. Instead, Evelyn refused the competition itself. I looked at my wife and felt the first crack in the wall I had built around my heart. Conrad approached with 2 board members. Miss Snowe, he said, perhaps we should postpone your presentation. Vanessa forced her expression back under control. That will not be necessary. She walked away without looking at Leon. The orchestra resumed. Conversations restarted in 100 carefully lowered voices. Evelyn turned to me. Do you want to leave? Do you? Desperately. Then we stay. Why? I looked toward Conrad and Victor. Because they expect our embarrassment to do their work for them. Evelyn's smile returned slowly. I knew you were the correct husband, she said. You have already announced that to an entire neighborhood. I may announce it again. We crossed the ballroom together. For the rest of the evening, I met executives, union leaders, ministers, and relatives who asked questions disguised as greetings. Evelyn never abandoned me in a conversation, but she never answered for me either. When a reporter asked whether I had married for money, I said, if that was my plan, I should have checked my wife's refrigerator first. Evelyn laughed so suddenly that the photograph appeared on financial websites within minutes. Near midnight, we escaped to a service balcony above the city. Are you still angry? She asked. Yes. Good. I would worry if one ballroom erased what I did. I am also impressed. $12 billion and you still cannot replace a faucet washer. I was waiting for a qualified husband. That was not in the contract. Page 412. We stood shoulder to shoulder, looking at the lights below. Thank you for staying, she said. Thank you for giving me the choice. Neither of us touched. For some reason, the space between our hands felt more intimate than a kiss. The next morning, Evelyn kept her promise. Priya and two accountants explained every company, trust, lawsuit, and hostile relative connected to the Hartwell name. We removed my consulting fee, separated my professional work from the marriage, and added penalties if either family interfered with the other's employment. No more hidden empires? I asked. One vineyard, Evelyn said. It loses money. Put it in the contract. She did, then signed before I did. Friday's board meeting began at 9. Conrad challenged the marriage before anyone discussed South River. Priya answered with the statute, the trust language, and our registration. The condition required a legal spouse and independent residence, not permission from the board. Victor shifted to me. Mr. Cole has no connection to the capital and no qualification to influence Hartwell's strategy. Correct, I said. I am not asking for a board seat. I am asking you to look at the district you intend to erase. Evelyn gave me the floor. I presented the unfinished South River alternative with residents seated behind me. Victor called it sentimental, until Mrs. Alvarez asked why his surveyors remembered to invoice her for parking but forgot to speak to the families they would remove. The final vote did not approve our plan. It did something more important. It delayed demolition for 60 days and authorized an independent comparison. The trust condition was recognized. Conrad lost his power to sign the merger alone. Evelyn became acting chair pending the comparison and a final confidence vote. Victor left the room without shaking anyone's hand. In the elevator, Evelyn leaned against the wall. We survived. Temporarily. I teased her until she struck my shoulder with her folder, and I laughed all the way to the lobby. The next 6 weeks gave us no time to pretend married life was simple. I worked with engineers, residents, and independent investors on the South River proposal. Evelyn spent her days untangling contracts Conrad had rushed through during his temporary control. At night, we returned to the townhouse, removed our formal clothes, and met over whatever meal one of us had remembered to acquire. Breakfast remained mandatory. Evelyn learned to make eggs, I installed a shelf before she drowned another tablet in the bathtub, and both of us learned how to argue without turning disagreement into control. When security became intrusive, we agreed that threats would be disclosed to both of us, and the person at risk would choose the response. Our marriage became real in negotiations like that, long before either of us used the word love. Priya defeated Vanessa's motion. My archives proved partial ownership of the platform and revealed how much work Snowe Atelier had credited only to Vanessa. I declined 3 job offers and opened an independent South River studio named Common Ground. Evelyn introduced me to a bank, then left the room while I negotiated. You could have secured a better rate, I told her later. I could have secured my rate. You needed yours. The distinction made me want to kiss her. I did not. Not yet. When Vanessa called because the supplier system failed, I sent her operations director the emergency manual, but did not call her. Helping employees keep their jobs did not require reopening our relationship. Then Leon made the situation worse. Leon had persuaded Vanessa to hire a corrupt campaign agency that sold unreleased designs. When she fired him, he sold her private messages to the press. One concerned me. Vanessa had written, Adrian will forgive anything once he believes I need him. The message spread across the Capitol beside photographs of my failed proposal. Reporters gathered outside Common Ground, but I refused to turn a private breakup into their entertainment. Then I went inside and finished the South River model. Evelyn arrived after dark with dinner. You did not have to come, I said. Breakfast rules do not prohibit dinner. She placed the containers on my desk, but did not touch me. Do you want to talk about the message? No. Do you want company while not talking? Yes. We ate beside the unfinished model. Afterward, Evelyn noticed the blue diamond ring in an open drawer. I had brought it to the studio so I could finally take it to a jeweler. She looked away immediately. You can ask, I said. It is not my business. It became your business when it appeared beside your dinner. I lifted the box. I designed this for Vanessa. I kept thinking returning it would mean admitting the proposal had been a mistake. Was it? Loving her was not a mistake. Ignoring what we became was. Evelyn traced the edge of the model table. What will you do with it? Sell it. Common Ground needs another printer. Very romantic. Printers are faithful if maintained. She smiled, but sadness remained in her eyes. Evelyn. Yes? I am not keeping it because I want her back. You do not owe me that explanation. Maybe I want to give it. Her gaze met mine. The studio was quiet except for rain against the window, just as it had rained outside the registry office. I stepped closer. May I kiss you? Evelyn's breath caught. Are you asking as my temporary husband? No. Then ask again. Evelyn Hartwell, may I kiss you because I have wanted to for 2 weeks and am tired of pretending I only admire your contract negotiations? Yes. Our first kiss was gentle, brief, and entirely unlike the dramatic beginning expected by everyone watching us. When we separated, Evelyn still held the front of my coat. 2 weeks? She asked. Possibly 3. You are slow. I was busy discovering my wife owned a railway. Only part of one. I kissed her again. The next morning, our private marriage contract appeared on every financial news site. Someone had photographed pages from the original version, including the 100-day limit and consulting fee we had already removed. Victor called an emergency board hearing. Conrad demanded Evelyn resign for deceiving shareholders. Commentators called me a hired spouse and claimed every South River contract was payment for supporting her. Access records showed a temporary clerk had copied Priya's file after receiving money from Leon's campaign agency. Halden Capital financed that agency. The counterfeit collection and the attack on our marriage were parts of Victor's same plan. We had evidence, but the payment trail would take weeks to authenticate. The board hearing would happen in hours. Evelyn dressed in silence. At the townhouse door, she handed me a signed statement releasing me from every obligation in our contract. What is this? A way out. If you attend, they will tear apart your relationship, career, and motives. You have already done more than I had the right to ask. Are you ending our marriage? Pain crossed her face. I am giving you the choice I nearly stole at the beginning. I folded the release and placed it in my pocket. Good. I choose to attend. Adrian, you cannot praise my boundaries only when they agree with yours. She stared at me. Then she nodded. Breakfast after? Even if we are unemployed? At the hearing, Victor displayed the leaked contract on a screen tall enough to make every sentence look criminal. This was never a marriage, he told the board. It was a transaction created to seize the trust. Evelyn stood. The registration was legal. The agreement protected 2 adults who entered an unusual arrangement. We disclosed the marriage date and Adrian's professional role. The private boundaries of our home are not board property. Conrad pointed toward the consulting clause. He was paid. That clause was removed before work began, Priya said. Common Ground invoices the community trust under independent review. Mr. Cole receives no compensation for being Evelyn's spouse. Victor looked at me. Do you love her? Murmurs moved through the room. That question has no place in a corporate hearing, Priya objected. It has every place when affection is being used to disguise fraud. I stood. The contract began as a practical agreement. That is true. Evelyn withheld the scale of her wealth, and I was angry when I learned it. That is also true. Victor smiled, believing I had helped him. But a marriage is not false because 2 people entered it carefully, I continued. It is not true because they perform affection for a board. You want me to say I love Evelyn so you can call the answer convenient? I will not turn something private into evidence for you. Evelyn's eyes shone, but she held my gaze. What I will discuss is work. Your redevelopment removes 12,000 residents to produce an estimated 6.1% return. Our plan keeps every resident, creates community ownership, and produces 7.4% after year 4. 3 pension funds and the university have signed conditional commitments. I placed the independent report on the table. You call me a gold digger because it is easier than explaining why the outsider built the better plan. Mrs. Alvarez distributed copies. Engineers, tenant representatives, and investors entered behind her. Victor had expected a romantic scandal. We answered with numbers and witnesses. The board approved the community plan by 2 votes. Then Priya presented preliminary records connecting Halden Capital to the leak and counterfeit campaign. Victor was suspended pending investigation. Conrad lost the final confidence vote after 3 directors learned he had concealed Halden's payments. Evelyn became chairwoman. The room erupted, but she did not look toward the cameras or the directors congratulating her. She looked at me. Outside the boardroom, she pulled me into an empty corridor. I love you, she said. No performance, no audience, no demand that I answer immediately. I touched her cheek. I love you too. She closed her eyes and leaned into my hand. That was much better than telling Victor. Victor did not earn the information. And I did? At least 4 breakfasts ago. She laughed through tears and kissed me. Vanessa came to the capital 2 weeks later. She requested a meeting through Priya, and I agreed to 30 minutes at common ground. Without cameras and assistants, my silver-haired ex looked tired rather than untouchable. Snowe Atelier had removed her as chief executive, and Leon had admitted Victor paid him for access. Vanessa placed the old apartment keys and a fair settlement on my desk. It credited my systems and designs correctly, even though the admission would cost her millions. I am sorry, she said at last. Not because you married Evelyn, not because my company suffered. I am sorry because you gave me loyalty, and I used it as permission to become cruel. It was the apology I once thought I needed. It did not restore us. It only allowed the past to stop arguing. I believe you regret it, I said. But I will not return. Do you love her? Yes. Love is not measured by how long someone endures pain. I confused endurance with depth for years. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not beg. She signed the settlement and left without begging. I returned the keys to the landlord by mail. On the 100th morning of our marriage, Evelyn prepared breakfast herself. The eggs were edible. The coffee was not. Beside my plate lay an envelope. Inside were disillusioned papers bearing her signature. You signed them, I said. I promised you an exit after 100 days. We also said no sacrificing yourself to prove a point. This is not sacrifice. It is a choice. The original agreement began without the whole truth. I need to know that if you remain now, you are choosing the marriage that actually exists. Her voice remained calm, but she had not touched her breakfast. What happens if I sign? Priya files them. You keep the studio, the house remains available until you find another place, and no Hartwell company interferes with your work. And us? There is no us unless you choose it without a contract. I placed the papers back in the envelope. I need the day. Her face went still. Of course. I took my coat and left before courage turned my plan into reassurance. First, I went to the jeweler and sold the blue diamond ring. Part of the money purchased Common Ground's new printer. Part funded a legal clinic for South River tenants. With a much smaller amount, I bought a plain gold ring engraved with 2 intersecting street lines. Then I went to Archive House. Mrs. Lin helped me move the same library table Evelyn and I once shared into the center of the bookstore. Marcus brought string lights from the rooftop restaurant. The South River children covered the floor with hand-drawn maps despite being asked to create tasteful decorations. At sunset, I called my wife. Evelyn, I have decided. Silence. Where are you? She asked. Archive House. She arrived 12 minutes later, still wearing her boardroom suit. She opened the door, saw the table, the lights, and everyone attempting badly to hide behind shelves. Adrian. I did not kneel immediately. I took her hands first. The last time I planned a proposal, I treated history like proof that the future was owed to me. I will not make that mistake again. You can say no. You can ask for time. You can change the terms. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Our first marriage began because we both needed a solution. Somewhere between the leaking faucet, South River, and 4 mandatory breakfasts a week, you became the person I want beside me when there is no crisis left to solve. Then I knelt and opened the ring box. Evelyn Hartwell, will you remain my wife after the contract ends? She laughed, cried, and pulled me to my feet before answering. Yes, but I am adding a condition. Which is? Breakfast 7 days a week. Unreasonable. Then my answer is under review. 6 days. Agreed. She kissed me while everyone behind the shelves abandoned any attempt at silence. Later, after the celebration, Evelyn and I sat at the old table alone. Mrs. Lin called you the library boy, I said. Why? Evelyn explained that she first noticed me when I sent the dean dated photographs proving a professor had stolen her flood model. She left when her grandmother became ill and returned after Vanessa and I had built a life. So you waited? No, I lived, but I kept your library notes. She opened a drawer beneath the old table and removed a yellow square of paper. My handwriting read, "Your West Foundation will flood. Also, the vending machine stole my coin again." That was your romantic treasure? My standards improved eventually. I kissed her forehead. 6 months later, we exchanged private vows in the renovated South River Market. Evelyn wore white beneath her dark hair and walked toward me without an orchestra, a board vote, or a condition hidden in a trust. Nobody was forced to choose. That was what made the promise real. Vanessa sent a short message wishing us a kinder future. Snowe Atelier survived under new leadership, and she began repairing the damage she had caused. Regret did not destroy her, and forgiveness did not restore us. South River survived too. The first renovated apartments reopened without a single resident displaced. Local businesses owned part of the new market. Common Ground grew from one room into a cooperative led by designers from the district. Evelyn remained chairwoman of Hartwell Group, but at home, she was still the woman who forgot groceries, read reports in the bathtub, and claimed my coffee tasted better because of marriage law. 1 year after I arrived in the capital, we returned to the rooftop restaurant where we had met again. Marcus raised a glass. To Adrian, who moved here with one suitcase and accidentally married the richest woman any of us have ever met. I did not marry her accidentally, I said. Evelyn slipped her hand into mine. You did fail to read the financial schedule, she reminded me. A temporary administrative error. A $12 billion administrative error. Everyone laughed. Below us, the capital stretched toward the river, bright and complicated, and no longer unfamiliar. I once believed love meant making yourself indispensable to another person. Vanessa needed me, and I mistook that need for proof that she would always value me. Evelyn taught me something different. Love was not being unable to leave. It was having an open door and choosing, freely and repeatedly, to return. I had moved to the capital to escape the life I lost. Instead, I found a wife, a home, and a future neither of us had been promised. This time, that future belonged equally to both of us.